The stars were silent. The peaceful quiet of space, once a comforting backdrop for humanity's dreams, now felt empty, as if the universe itself held its breath. Earth, once a small speck in the vastness of space, had been thrust into a new reality. Humanity had never been prepared for this moment, yet it was happening now. The Zothar fleet had arrived. It came without warning. No previous communication, no threats, just a sudden appearance in Earth's orbit. Ships the size of cities, with dark, jagged edges, filled the sky. They were an alien species of brutal conquerors, known for their cruelty and their relentless desire to dominate. The Zothar were not interested in peace. They were interested only in annihilation. As their fleet hovered above, the world watched in terror. From the moment their ships entered Earth's atmosphere, it was clear humanity's time on this planet was over. Governments scrambled to respond. Military commanders were given orders, but nothing could prepare them for the power that was about to descend upon them. The Zothar ships fired their first volley, a blast so powerful it sent shockwaves across the planet. Buildings crumbled, cities were set ablaze, and entire regions were wiped off the map in an instant. Earth is now a colony of the Zothar, a cold voice echoed from the lead ship. The broadcast was intercepted worldwide, chilling the hearts of billions. It was not a question. It was a declaration. The alien fleet had come, and they would not leave until humanity was nothing but a memory. President Rachel Carter stood in the heart of the White House, staring at the screens, her face pale. She had always been the calm leader, the one who steadied the ship in rough seas. But now she felt as though the seas themselves had turned against her. She had spent years preparing for possible threats, but nothing could have predicted this. Nothing could have predicted the Zothar, Mr. President. One of her advisors spoke urgently, his voice trembling. The military is mobilizing, but their weapons, they're not enough. The Zothar's shields are too strong. We can't break through. Carter's mind raced. She had no choice but to make decisions fast. The survival of Earth depended on it. Send everything we have, she ordered, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. We fight back. We fight to survive. But we need time. Time. That was the one thing she knew they didn't have. As Earth's military forces scrambled to respond, the Zothar continued their brutal assault. Their ships descended, sending more blasts of energy to wipe out Earth's defenses. The air crackled with the sound of destruction. Humanity was being crushed under the weight of an enemy far superior, and it seemed like there was no hope left. Then, in the chaos, something strange happened. A signal, faint but clear, was detected by the military. It was coming from Earth's orbit, directly from the moon. But it wasn't just any signal. It was something ancient, something buried long ago. The military didn't know what it was, but it was powerful, and it was unmistakable. Sir, the signal. It's coming from the old military archives. An officer called out in disbelief. This can't be real. The screen in front of President Carter flickered. A map of the moon appeared, with a series of markings that no one had seen for centuries. It was as if someone had hidden something there, something that had been forgotten. The officer paused, staring at the screen. It's a fleet of warships. But they're not from Earth. These ships were built long ago. A chill ran down Carter's spine. She had heard of ancient programs, of secret weapons, but never anything this significant. It couldn't be, could it? But as the Zothar continued their brutal assault, a low hum began to echo from the depths of space. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the very core of the planet. Suddenly, the massive warships that Earth had thought were long lost appeared from the darkness of space. They were cloaked, hidden, waiting. And now they were awakening. The silent fleet, Earth's last hope. The first ship emerged from the shadows, its massive form cutting through the stars. It was unlike anything the world had ever seen, enormous, with sleek, shimmering armor that reflected the distant light of the sun. The ship's hull gleamed as if it had been waiting for this very moment. Behind it, more ships began to materialize, each one even larger and more imposing than the last. It was an armada, silent and deadly. President Carter watched in awe as the fleet took position, poised to strike. It was clear now, Earth's ancient weapon had been activated, but why had it remained hidden for so long? Before she could process the situation fully, a transmission came through. It was a message from the silent fleet, from the command ship that hovered above Earth. Humanity's monster has been awakened. The Zothar, still focused on their destruction of Earth's cities, had no idea what was coming. But soon they would. The silent fleet was ready, and Earth was no longer helpless. As the first shots from the silent fleet rang out, the Zothar's flagship erupted into flames. In the chaos, the Zothar fleet scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Humanity's weapon had arrived, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zothar fleet, so sure of its victory, was now in chaos. Their massive ships, once unchallenged in their dominance, were beginning to fall. The first strike from the silent fleet had shattered the Zothar flagship, sending debris scattering across the dark void of space. Panic spread through the ranks of the alien invaders as they tried to regroup, but Earth's new warships had already positioned themselves for the next strike. The silent fleet was a sight to behold, an armada of enormous ships, ancient in design but deadly in their capabilities. They had been hidden in the farthest reaches of space, sealed away for centuries, waiting for the right moment to emerge. That moment had come. Captain Elias Stone, one of humanity's greatest commanders, stood at the helm of the Avenger, the first warship to engage the Zothar forces. He watched as the massive battlecruiser loomed before him, its dark metallic surface reflecting the distant stars. The ship was alive with power, humming with energy as the ancient engines roared to life. Stone had been briefed on the fleet's history, its purpose, but nothing could have prepared him for the sheer force of the silent fleet's power. These were not just ships. They were weapons, crafted by humanity's greatest minds, long before the first colony was ever built. Now they were the last hope of Earth. Captain, the Zothar are regrouping, the communications officer said, his voice tense. They're forming a defensive perimeter around their remaining ships. They're trying to stop us, Stone clenched his fists. The Zothar were powerful, but they had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. Set course for the nearest dreadnought, Stone ordered. Lock weapons on their command ship. This ends now. The Avenger began its slow, methodical approach toward the heart of the Zothar fleet. As it moved, the other ships of the silent fleet followed, emerging from the shadows like giants awakening from a long slumber. They were massive, each one capable of laying waste to entire fleets with a single shot. The sheer size of these ships was enough to strike fear into the heart of any enemy. But what made them truly dangerous was their weaponry, energy cannons that could vaporize anything in their path, shield systems that made them nearly invulnerable, and technology far beyond anything the Zothar had ever encountered. The Zothar dreadnoughts, with their jagged alien designs, began to fire upon the advancing silent fleet, but their shots were ineffective. The ships of the silent fleet moved with eerie precision, avoiding the blasts with ease. The Zothar, despite their superior numbers, could do nothing to stop the oncoming storm. Prepare to engage, Stone ordered. We need to give them a message they'll never forget. The Avenger fired its first salvo, a concentrated beam of energy that tore through the Zothar dreadnought's shields like paper. The blast struck the ship's hull, igniting a massive explosion. The Zothar flagship was the first to fall, disintegrating into space in a blaze of fire and debris. Direct hit, Captain, the weapons officer shouted. The dreadnought is down. Stone's face remained stoic, but inside, a surge of adrenaline rushed through him. This was just the beginning. He knew the Zothar would not give up easily. They would fight to the last ship. But they hadn't accounted for the silent fleet, and they hadn't accounted for humanity's will to survive. We've got more coming in, the census officer called out. Their smaller ships are launching fighter jets. They're trying to slow us down. Let them try, Stone replied. Open fire on the fighter group. We don't have time to waste. The Silent Fleet's energy cannons unleashed their fury, cutting through the enemy fighters like a hot knife through butter. The Zothar's once impressive fleet was rapidly disintegrating under the onslaught, their attempts to retaliate growing weaker with every passing second. "Captain, we've received another signal," the communications officer said, his voice full of confusion. "It's coming from the Zothar's command ship, but it's a distress signal." Stone raised an eyebrow. "A distress signal? From them?" Before he could respond, the transmission cut through. "This is Commander Turok of the Zothar fleet. We surrender. Please cease fire. We cannot withstand this attack." Stone's eyes narrowed. The Zothar, who had arrived with such overwhelming force, were now begging for mercy. It was a testament to the sheer power of the Silent Fleet and to the hidden strength of humanity that had been unleashed. But Stone wasn't ready to stop yet. The Zothar had committed atrocities against Earth's colonies. They had taken too much. They had crossed a line. "Not yet," Stone muttered. "We don't stop until they learn their lesson." The Avenger fired again, this time taking out another Zothar vessel in the blink of an eye. The silence of space was broken only by the echo of the weapons and the frantic scrambling of the alien fleet. "Captain, the rest of their fleet is retreating," the census officer reported. "They're jumping to hyperspace." "They're running. Let them run," Stone said. "They can't hide from what's coming." As the last of the Zothar ships disappeared into the void, Stone knew that this battle was only the first. The Zothar had invaded Earth, but now they knew the consequences. Humanity had a monster within it, one that would stop at nothing to protect its people, its home. But there was something else out there in the depths of space, something far darker than the Zothar, and Stone knew that the Silent Fleet was just the beginning. As the fleet regrouped, a new signal suddenly cut through the quiet, one that didn't come from the Zothar, but from somewhere deeper in the galaxy. Something far older. "Humanity," the voice said, "your war has just begun." The silence of space settled over Earth as the remnants of the Zothar fleet fled into hyperspace. For a moment, humanity stood in stunned disbelief. The Silent Fleet, long hidden and forgotten, had emerged from the shadows of history, and with it, humanity's hidden power had been awakened. The Zothar, invaders who had threatened to obliterate Earth, had been forced to retreat in the face of a new, unimaginable force. But as the last of the alien ships vanished, something else lingered in the depths of space. The message was clear. This battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Captain Elias Stone stood on the bridge of the Avenger, watching the stars pass by. His face was grim, even as the crew celebrated their victory. It wasn't the first time humanity had been on the brink of extinction. Yet this time they had fought back, not with desperation, but with strength and precision. The Silent Fleet had been a game-changer, a fleet of ancient warships, each more powerful than anything the Zothar had ever faced. "Captain," the communications officer called, breaking Stone's thoughts. "We've detected an encrypted transmission. It's not from the Zothar. It's something else." Stone's brows furrowed. "From where?" "Somewhere deep in the galaxy. It's too far for us to trace, but it's coming through. It's a message meant for Earth." "Put it through," Stone said, his voice steady but his mind racing. He had a sense that this was no ordinary communication. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was capable of defending itself, but now someone else was taking notice. The screen flickered to life. The face that appeared was alien. Pale skin, eyes black as space itself, and a stern expression. It was a face that none of Earth's military or scientific teams had ever seen before. The alien's voice, though calm, carried an undeniable sense of power. "Humanity," the alien began, its words cold and measured. "You have awoken the monster. But you should know, you are not the first species to be underestimated. We, the Tyrex, have been watching you." Stone's heart skipped a beat. The Tyrex, a name not known to most of humanity. An ancient species, older than the Zothar, said to have vanished long ago. Yet here they were, their leader speaking directly to Earth. "We have watched your world from the shadows," the Tyrex continued. The Zothar were a nuisance, but they were nothing compared to what is coming. You believe you have won. No, you have only provoked what is truly waiting for you. A war unlike anything you can imagine is about to begin. The screen went dark. Stone's mind raced. The Tyrex had been watching them for centuries. Why had they waited until now to speak? What did they want? "Captain, what should we do?" his communications officer asked, his voice tight with unease. Stone turned away from the screen, his gaze fixed on the stars. This was no ordinary threat. The Tyrex were older, more powerful, and they had just made it clear that Earth was now a target. The fight was no longer just about repelling invaders. It was about standing firm against a force that had waited in the darkness, biding its time. "We prepare," Stone said firmly. "The Zothar were just the beginning. The Tyrex have declared war, and we need to be ready. All ships are to be on high alert. The silent fleet has served its purpose, but now we need to know what else we have hidden. I want every piece of technology, every weapon system, every ancient artifact reviewed. We need to know everything our ancestors left behind." The crew moved swiftly, preparing for whatever the Tyrex had in store. But Stone couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the tip of the iceberg. The Tyrex had been waiting, watching, and now they were finally making their move. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the reaction to the Tyrex's transmission was swift. News agencies broadcasted the message across the globe, and panic began to spread. People had witnessed humanity's triumph over the Zothar, but this new threat seemed insurmountable. The Tyrex were a species of unimaginable power, their reputation one of dread. As Stone walked the bridge of the Avenger, he was approached by his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kara Lee. "Captain, we've begun studying the Tyrex message. There's something else. It's not just a threat. There's a clue hidden within their transmission." Stone looked at her, his brow furrowing. "A clue? What do you mean?" Right before the transmission ended, there was a slight distortion. "It's an ancient code, one that matches a pattern we've seen before. We think they're leaving us a message, something hidden in plain sight." Stone leaned in, intrigued. "What's the message?" Lee hesitated for a moment before speaking. "It's a location, Captain. A place in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. We believe it's where the Tyrex are hiding their true strength. If we can reach it, we may have a chance at striking first." Stone's eyes narrowed. This was the break they needed, the first real lead on how to take the fight to the Tyrex, but it was also a dangerous move. The distance was vast, and the Tyrex were likely already aware of their plan. "Prepare a fleet." "We're going after it," Stone ordered. If the Tyrex think they can hide from humanity, they're about to find out how wrong they are. As Stone left the bridge, the screen behind him flickered one last time. A dark figure appeared in the shadows of the transmission. "You can try to run," the voice echoed, "but you will never escape the Tyrex." The message cut off abruptly, leaving an air of chilling finality. The Avenger was no longer the only ship in Earth's fleet. The silent fleet, once dormant and hidden, now pulsed with life as humanity's greatest weapon continued to grow. The ships that had stayed hidden for centuries were now deployed in full force. As Captain Elias Stone stood before the vast fleet, the reality of their situation began to sink in. The Tyrex were real, and their words were not empty threats. They had declared war on humanity, but humanity wasn't going down quietly. "We leave in 20 minutes, Stone said, his voice steady. "Prepare all ships. We're heading for the Tyrex's hidden location." "Understood, Captain," Lieutenant Kara Lee replied. She was focused, her eyes scanning the tactical map, fingers tracing coordinates across the holographic display. It was a journey that would take them to the furthest edges of known space, a place where the Tyrex were rumored to have kept their greatest secrets. The crew was working at full speed, organizing the fleet and ensuring all systems were operational. They knew what was at stake. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. This was about sending a message to the galaxy. Humanity had awakened, and no one would stand in their way. "Captain, we've received another encrypted transmission," the communications officer called out. His tone was tinged with uncertainty. "It's from Earth. It's..." President Carter, Stone's heart skipped. He had expected news from Earth, but not so soon. He quickly moved toward the communication panel. "Put it through," Stone ordered. The screen flickered, and President Rachel Carter's face appeared. Her expression was serious, but there was a spark of hope in her eyes. "Captain Stone, I know you're about to embark on a dangerous mission," she said, her voice calm but heavy with the weight of responsibility. "But I need you to understand the magnitude of what you're about to face. The Tyrex are no mere conquerors. They are ancient, and their power is beyond anything we've ever known. They have the capability to erase entire civilizations from existence with a single strike. But this is the moment humanity has been waiting for. You've already proven that we are capable of fighting back." "I believe in you," Stone nodded, his resolve hardening. "Thank you, President. We will strike first. But remember, Captain," Carter continued, her voice tinged with a hint of warning. "The Tyrex are no ordinary enemy. They've been watching us for centuries. They know our tactics, our weaknesses. You must be prepared for the worst." The screen flickered again as the transmission ended. Stone stood there for a moment, processing her words. There was no turning back now. Humanity was about to take the fight to a force far older and more powerful than they could ever imagine. But they had no choice. The Tyrex had threatened everything they loved. As the fleet prepared to depart, Stone received a message from the Avengers' lead engineer, Dr. Liam Hayes. "Captain, we finished analyzing the ancient technology in the Silent Fleet. There's something you need to..." "No, it's not just weapons. There's something else, something even more powerful, hidden within these ships." Stone turned to face Hayes, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" Dr. Hayes adjusted his glasses nervously. "The fleet, Captain. It's not just a military force. These ships are alive. They're part of a much older program, an ancient AI program that links the ships together. It's not like anything we've ever seen before. If we activate it fully, we could gain access to the full potential of the fleet, but it's risky. If we push it too far, we might lose control." Stone paused, considering the implications. "How risky?" "We don't know yet. The program was designed for survival in extreme circumstances, but we've never activated it to its full potential. We're essentially walking into the unknown." Stone looked out the viewports, staring into the vastness of space. The stars twinkled, distant and indifferent. But behind him, humanity's greatest weapon was now fully awake. It was ready to face the Tyrex, but would it be enough? "We take the risk," Stone said finally. "Activate it. We need every advantage we can get." Dr. Hayes nodded and quickly moved to the control panel. The Avengers shuddered as the ancient AI systems began to come online. The ship hummed with a low, almost organic sound, and for the first time, Stone felt as if they were not just commanding a warship, but communicating with something much older and far more powerful. As the fleet moved into hyperspace, the crew stood ready, each one feeling the weight of what was about to happen. The journey would take days, maybe longer, but the longer they waited, the more dangerous the Tyrex would become. The race was on. Days passed in the depths of space as the fleet made its way toward the hidden location of the Tyrex. The stars outside the Avengers' windows blurred into streaks of light as they traveled, at speeds beyond anything Earth had ever dreamed of. The crew had time to reflect on the mission ahead, but it didn't take long for tension to rise. The reality of what they were about to face began to settle in. The Tyrex were out there waiting, and if Stone's plan worked, the Silent Fleet would be their first strike. "We're approaching the Tyrex's location," the sensors officer called out, his voice filled with anticipation. "We'll be entering their territory in 15 minutes. Stone stood up, his voice clear and unwavering. "Prepare yourselves. This is it. We fight for Earth, for humanity's future." But even as the Avenger and the rest of the fleet closed in on their destination, a strange feeling settled over Stone. The deeper they traveled, the more it felt as though they were walking into a trap. The Tyrex had been waiting for them, watching them for centuries. What if they had been waiting for the Silent Fleet all along? Just as the fleet neared the Tyrex stronghold, A sudden flash of energy ripped through the darkness, sending shockwaves across the ships. The silent fleet shuddered. Something was out there, something waiting in the dark. A massive shadow loomed ahead, blocking their path, a force far greater than they had ever anticipated. The Avenger shuddered as another wave of energy rippled through the silent fleet. The shockwave rattled the entire armada, and the crew braced themselves, eyes wide with alarm. Something out there, something vast and powerful, had just made its presence known. "Captain!" the sensors officer yelled, his voice filled with panic. "A massive ship. It's massive, beyond anything we've ever seen. It's blocking our path." Stone stood up, heart pounding in his chest. He had been expecting a fight, but not something like this. Not this soon. The Tyrex had been waiting for them, and now they were showing their hand. How massive? Stone demanded. The officer didn't need to check his readings again. It's the size of a small moon, Captain, and it's heading straight for us." Stone's gaze hardened as he looked out at the dark expanse of space. His eyes fixed on the massive silhouette now appearing in the distance, its outline barely visible against the stars, but its size unmistakable. "Put it on screen," Stone ordered. The large holographic display flickered to life. The image that appeared before him was something out of a nightmare. The Tyrex ship was immense, black, jagged, and imposing. It looked like a weapon in itself, built to strike fear into the hearts of any who laid eyes on it. Massive energy cannons lined its surface, and its hull seemed to pulse with dark energy. The sheer size of it made Earth's silent fleet look like toys. "It's the Tyrex Colossus," Lieutenant Cara Lee said quietly, her voice tinged with awe. "Legends say it was built to end entire wars with a single strike. It's said to be unstoppable." Stone's jaw clenched. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. The Tyrex had unleashed their most devastating weapon, and it was heading straight for them. "Captain, their weapons are powering up," the weapons officer reported, his hands flying over the control panel. "It's charging its main cannon." Stone felt a chill run down his spine. The main cannon was the Tyrex's deadliest weapon, capable of obliterating entire fleets with a single shot. If they didn't act quickly, Earth's last hope would be destroyed in an instant. "Deploy all ships," Stone ordered. "Take evasive maneuvers. We need to buy time for the silent fleet's weapons to charge up." The fleet sprang into action. The Avenger and the other warships scattered, breaking formation as they tried to outmaneuver the incoming attack. The Tyrex Colossus fired first, a beam of pure energy lancing through space, targeting the nearest ship in the silent fleet. The blast hit its target. An enormous explosion erupted, sending fragments of the warship spiraling through space. "One ship down," the sensors officer reported, his voice grim. "They're too fast. Our shields won't hold under that kind of firepower." Stone's mind raced. The Tyrex had anticipated their every move. They had come prepared for this moment. But Earth had one advantage the Tyrex didn't count on. The silent fleet wasn't just a group of ships. It was a force, a singular unified force powered by an ancient AI, capable of coordinating attacks at levels that the Tyrex could never predict. "Activate the full AI protocol," Stone ordered, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "We need everything these ships have." Dr. Liam Hayes, the engineer who had worked tirelessly to unlock the silent fleet's full potential, rushed to the control panel. "Initializing now, Captain. This is untested. Once we engage the full AI, it will take control of the fleet's movements and weapons systems." Stone nodded. "Do it, we don't have time." The fleet responded almost immediately. The AI, now fully activated, synchronized the movements of the silent fleet, calculating trajectories and battle strategies in real time, faster than any human could comprehend. The ships began moving as one, an unstoppable force that moved with precision and fluidity. The Tyrex Colossus fired again, but this time the silent fleet was ready. The fleet's warships dodged with unimaginable speed, slipping through the Tyrex's deadly beams like shadows. The silent fleet ships unleashed their own volleys of energy, powerful blasts that tore through the space between them and the Colossus. The battle intensified. Ships collided with deadly speed, turning the dark expanse of space into a kaleidoscope of explosions and flashing lights. The silent fleet, once a dormant relic of the past, had become a living nightmare for the Tyrex. "We're gaining ground," Carolee shouted. "Their shields are weakening. If we can hit their main cannon, we might be able to disable it. Target the cannon," Stone barked. "Give it everything we've got." The Avenger fired, its main cannon sending a barrage of energy beams toward the Tyrex Colossus. The first shots struck the Colossus's shields, causing massive sparks and shuddering explosions. The second volley hit its main cannon, cracking the massive weapon and sending shockwaves through the enemy ship. But the Tyrex weren't backing down. With the roar of power, the Colossus unleashed another deadly blast, this time aimed directly at the Avenger. The energy beam tore through space, faster than anything Stone had ever seen. It was too fast, too powerful. He braced for impact, but then something unexpected happened. A sleek ship from the Silent Fleet, one of the smaller warships, came between the Avenger and the incoming blast. The ship's shields flared brightly as it took the full force of the Tyrex cannon. The smaller warship disintegrated in an instant, its sacrifice saving the Avenger and the rest of the fleet. "No!" Stone yelled, his heart heavy with the loss of the brave crew. "Captain, we've got their cannon!" The sensors officer shouted. "The main cannon is disabled. They can't fire again!" Stone's chest tightened, the weight of the moment settling on him. The Tyrex Colossus was still formidable, but now, with their primary weapon disabled, the battle was far from over. Just as victory seemed within reach, a strange new signal cut through the chaos, a deep, rumbling voice, not from the Colossus, but from the void itself. "You think this is a victory?" the voice echoed. "You've only scratched the surface of our power. The true war is about to begin." The battlefield was still raging, but now, with the Tyrex Colossus's main cannon destroyed, the odds were shifting in humanity's favor. The Silent Fleet was relentless, striking with a deadly precision that even the Tyrex couldn't fully predict. The skies, once dark and silent, were now alive with the flashing of energy blasts, the shriek of weapons discharging and the silent, cold dance of colossal warships. But as the Tyrex ships faltered and began to retreat, Stone couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The voice that had echoed through space, cold, menacing, and filled with an ancient power, lingered in his mind. "You've only scratched the surface of our power," it had said. Stone knew that the Tyrex weren't like the Zothar. They weren't going to run. They weren't going to surrender. This war would only escalate, and what was left of humanity's fleet would soon find itself facing something far worse than a broken cannon. "Captain!" Carolee called, her voice tight with urgency. "We've been receiving strange readings. Something's coming, something massive. It's not one of the remaining ships. It's different." "What do you mean?" Stone asked, turning toward her. "I don't know, but it's heading straight toward us," she said, scanning the tactical display. "It's enormous, Captain. It's generating energy signatures that we've never seen before. This is beyond anything we've ever encountered." Stone's heart skipped. The Tyrex had already unleashed their most devastating weapon, but now this. What could be worse than the Colossus? "Raise shields. All ships, fall back and prepare for evasive maneuvers," Stone ordered. "Get ready for whatever's coming." The fleet began to reorganize, pulling back from the Tyrex retreating forces as the mysterious object grew closer. The massive warships of the Silent Fleet were formidable, but this new threat, whatever it was not something they could afford to take lightly. Then, as if in answer to the growing tension, the object appeared from the darkness of space. At first it was just a dot far in the distance, but as it grew closer, its scale became undeniable. "Captain, it's here," Carolee whispered, her voice barely audible as the object came into focus on the screen. It was a ship, a colossal one, and this one dwarfed even the Tyrex Colossus. The ship was unlike anything Stone had ever seen. It was sleek, black and smooth, its surface shimmering with strange iridescent energy. Massive energy conduits ran along its hull, pulsating with power. It looked like a living thing, organic in design, as though the ship itself was some kind of creature from the deepest reaches of space. The power emanating from it was so overwhelming that Stone could feel it in his chest, even through the ship's hull. "That's no ordinary warship," Stone muttered. "What is that thing?" "It's not just a ship," Kara said, her voice filled with disbelief. "That's a weapon, and it's headed straight for us." The object, if it could even be called that, seemed to pulse with dark energy, growing brighter and more intense as it neared the silent fleet. Stone's eyes narrowed. It was as though the Tyrex had been holding something back, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal their true weapon. "Shields are at maximum," the tactical officer reported. "We can't match that kind of energy. We won't survive a direct hit." Stone clenched his jaw. "Then we don't give it the chance. Target their weak points, all ships. Concentrate fire on those energy conduits. We need to stop this thing before it reaches us." The fleet responded immediately, their weapons charging up for a coordinated strike. The silent fleet's warships fired their energy beams, hitting the massive weapon with everything they had. The blast struck the hull of the ship, sending ripples of energy cascading outward. But the ship didn't flinch. It absorbed the attacks as though they were nothing more than rain. "We're not getting through," the weapons officer shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Their shields are impenetrable. We can't even scratch the surface." Stone's mind raced. If the silent fleet couldn't break through their defenses, they needed to try something else. They needed to find another way in, something the Tyrex hadn't accounted for. "Kara, what's the status on the AI?" Stone asked, turning toward his second-in-command. "It's running at full capacity, Captain," she replied. "But we've never encountered anything like this before." "I can't guarantee the fleet can outthink it. We need to focus on their weak points." Stone's mind snapped to the history of the silent fleet. He had known from the start that the fleet wasn't just a collection of warships. There was something more to it. The AI wasn't just a tactical advantage. It was a living force, capable of adapting to threats in ways that no one had fully understood. "Activate the fleet's core systems," Stone ordered, "and lock the weapons hidden within the fleet's central matrix." Dr. Hayes, who had been monitoring the fleet systems, rushed to his console. "Captain, we don't fully understand what these systems can do. This could backfire." "We don't have a choice," Stone cut him off. "We need to try." The order was given. The silent fleet's AI, now fully activated, began to synchronize all of the warships into one unified force, the ships working together as a single entity. The central matrix unlocked its ultimate weapon, the full power of every ship's energy core, combined into one devastating blast. "Firing," Carolee said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. The fleet's weapons combined into a single beam of pure energy, striking the dark weapon head-on. The blast was so powerful that the entire battlefield seemed to vibrate, as if the universe itself was recoiling. The ship shuddered, and for the first time, a massive explosion erupted across its surface. The energy shield faltered, but then the unimaginable happened. A second pulse of dark energy shot out from the ship, stronger, faster, and more concentrated than anything humanity had ever seen. The blast struck the silent fleet, sending shockwaves through their ships. The Avenger and several others were knocked off course, their shields flickering dangerously. "Captain!" the weapons officer shouted. "We've lost control of the fleet. It's overwhelming us." The situation was spiraling out of control. The Tyrex had shown them their true power, and it was enough to break the silent fleet. As Stone fought to regain control, the massive weapon began to charge once more. The Tyrex had one last card to play, and it was more devastating than anything they had faced. "We are not finished," the voice from the Tyrex fleet echoed, as the weapon's energy began to pulse again, readying for a final, catastrophic strike. The pulse of energy from the Tyrex weapon was like a shockwave, tearing through space and shaking the silent fleet to its very core. The Avenger rocked violently, its hull creaking under the pressure. For a moment, everything was chaos. Sparks flew from consoles, alarms blared, and the crew struggled to stay focused as their ship shuddered from the overwhelming force. "We can't take another hit like that," Kara Lee shouted, gripping the edge of the command console. "Our shields are down to 30%, Captain." Stone's mind raced. The Tyrex had proven their strength beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. Their ultimate weapon, a force of unimaginable power, was unlike anything Earth's fleet could handle. The explosion had torn through the Silent Fleet's defenses, and now the remaining warships were in disarray. "Activate secondary shields," Stone ordered, his voice firm despite the fear creeping into his mind. "We need to hold them off long enough to strike back," but deep down, Stone knew they were running out of time. The Tyrex had shown no signs of mercy. They had come for humanity with everything they had, and now it was clear they intended to finish what they had started. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission," the communications officer shouted, his voice tinged with alarm. "It's from the Tyrex ship. The weapon. They're broadcasting directly to us." Stone felt his heart tighten. The Tyrex had already shown their might, and now they were sending a message. He nodded grimly. "Put it through," he ordered. The screen flickered to life, revealing the same cold face from earlier. The Tyrex leader. Its expression was unreadable, but the weight of its words was clear. "You have done well to survive this long, humanity," the Tyrex leader said, its voice deep and chilling. "But you will not survive what is coming next. We have waited for centuries for this moment. The end of your kind has already been written. And now you will learn what true power is." The transmission ended abruptly, the eerie silence of space settling back in. Stone turned to his crew, his face a mask of determination. "Prepare for battle," he said, his voice steady. "We fight to the end." But before anyone could react, a loud, shrill alarm blared. The census officer's voice rang out in panic. "Captain, they're launching something. It's too big to be a standard attack." The viewports of the Avenger lit up with flashes of energy, and through the darkness, Stone could make out something massive, something terrifying. It was a ship, unlike anything they had faced before. A colossal structure, dark and jagged, its surface covered in glowing symbols and ominous energy cores. The sheer scale of the ship was enough to make Stone's stomach twist. It's an invasion force," Kara Lee shouted, her eyes wide with horror. "They're not just attacking with weapons, they've brought a full fleet." Before Stone could respond, the massive ship released dozens of smaller craft, hundreds of them, filling the void with fast-moving vessels that swarmed toward the Silent Fleet. The Tyrex weren't just launching a final assault. They were preparing for total annihilation. "Deploy all fighters," Stone ordered. "Engage at will. Every ship fire on that command ship. We have no choice but to take the fight to them." The Silent Fleet's warships responded immediately, launching every fighter and combat drone they had left. The once coordinated fleet now split into chaos as the fighters engaged the Tyrex invaders in a violent dogfight above the remains of the Colossus. "Captain," the weapons officer said urgently, "the Tyrex flagship is charging its main cannon again. It's not just a regular blast. This is bigger. They're preparing to obliterate us." Stone's heart raced. He had no time. The Tyrex were preparing to deliver the final blow, and their cannon was more powerful than anything they had seen before. The end of humanity seemed inevitable, but he wasn't ready to accept it. Not yet. Not while there was still a chance to fight. "We need to break through," Stone shouted. "Kara, I need you to find me an opening, any weakness in their formation." Kara's fingers flew across the controls, her eyes scanning every possible angle. "There, a blind spot in their shield grid. It's narrow, but if we can push through with enough firepower, we might be able to hit their core systems." Stone's mind raced. They had one shot to take down the Tyrex flagship before it could fire its cannon and wipe them out. The rest of the Silent Fleet was fighting valiantly, but the Tyrex were pressing harder with every moment. "Full speed ahead," Stone ordered. "We're going straight for that weak point. Prepare all weapons for a concentrated blast." The Avenger shot forward, its engines roaring to life as the silent fleet followed in pursuit, rallying behind Stone's bold command. The Tyrex flagship loomed ahead, a looming fortress of destruction. The fighters were everywhere, a blur of laser fire and explosions, but Stone's focus was sharp. He could see the gap in the Tyrex shield, a tiny sliver of vulnerability amidst the monstrous structure. "Fire!" Stone shouted. The fleet released everything they had, concentrated energy blasts from every ship, every cannon. The energy streaked through space, a beam of humanity's last hope. The blast struck the Tyrex flagship directly at the weak point, sending a shockwave through the ship that lit up the entire battlefield. For a moment, it seemed as though the Tyrex flagship had been disabled. But then nothing. No explosion. No destruction. The ship simply flickered, its shields flaring and holding steady, as though the blast had never even touched it. "Captain, it's not working," Carolee screamed. "The shields are reactivating. They're too strong." Stone's blood ran cold. They were out of time. The Tyrex had won. The fleet had given everything it had, and it hadn't been enough. Just as the Tyrex flagship began to power up its cannon for the final strike, a low hum vibrated through the Avenger. The fleet's AI systems, suddenly synchronized with an unknown signal, surged to life. Something deeper within the silent fleet had awakened, and this time it wasn't just about victory. Humanity was about to unleash something far darker than the Tyrex could ever imagine. The Avenger trembled as the massive hum resonated through the ship, vibrating the very core of the fleet. It was as if something deep within the silent fleet had come alive. The AI, now fully synchronized, began to take control of every warship, every system, every weapon, everything humanity had hidden within the depths of their ancient ships. Stone stood at the helm, watching as the energy crackled and pulsed in front of him. His heart pounded in his chest. The Tyrex flagship, its shields barely holding after their earlier barrage, was powering up its cannon for the final, devastating blow. Humanity's last hope seemed to be crumbling before their eyes. "Captain," Carolee said, her voice strained, "the Tyrex flagship is charging again. It's too late for us. Before she could finish, the ship shuddered again, this time more violently. But this wasn't the Tyrex's cannon. The hum grew louder, and the Avenger's systems flickered, then came back online with an overwhelming surge of power. "What's happening?" Gara gasped. Stone didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the screen, watching as the silent fleet began to move in unison, faster and with more precision than ever before. Something had triggered in the fleet's core systems, an unknown force that was now pushing them beyond their limits. The fleet was no longer just following commands. It was alive. A deep, resonating voice echoed through the bridge, not from any human crew member, but from the fleet's AI, now fully awakened. It spoke with a cold authority, the words precise, calculated. "Humanity's judgment is upon you, and Tyrex." The air in the bridge grew thick with tension as the ships of the silent fleet surged forward, all weapons now at full power. The Tyrex flagship, once an indomitable fortress, began to tremble. A dark shadow of fear crossed its massive hull as it became clear that humanity had just unlocked a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. "Fire!" Stone commanded, his voice sharp with the urgency of the moment. The fleet responded immediately. Every ship fired in perfect sync, their energy beams converging into a singular, unstoppable barrage. The Tyrex flagship's shields flickered, barely holding, as the energy beams slammed into it with the force of a supernova. The massive alien ship screamed in silence as the energy blasts punched through its hull, creating massive cracks and ruptures. "We're breaking through," Kara shouted. "Their shields are failing. We've exposed their core." The Avenger's cannons fired again, sending a direct shot into the Tyrex flagship's heart. The blast tore through the ship's core, the explosion erupting in a blaze of light and fire that rippled through space. For a moment, everything stopped. The battlefield went quiet. The massive ship drifted motionless, its hull burning from within. "Did we?" Kara began, but the answer was clear. The Tyrex flagship was gone, but the victory was bittersweet. The remaining Tyrex ships, now without their command vessel, began to retreat, but not in fear. No, they were calculating. They knew they were beaten, at least for now, but they would not let this humiliation stand. The Tyrex had more tricks up their sleeves. They would return. They would wait for the right moment. Stone clenched his fists, his gaze fixed on the empty space where the Tyrex flagship had been. He could almost hear the Tyrex leader's voice, echoing in the back of his mind. "You have awoken something ancient in us, humanity. The war is not over." Suddenly the silence of the void was shattered by a voice, one that sent a chill down Stone's spine. It wasn't the Tyrex, it was something far worse. The voice came through on all channels, its tone deep and menacing. "You have taken your first step, humanity. But the galaxy does not belong to you. It belongs to us, the Elders. And now your true test begins." Stone's heart froze. The Elders. He had heard rumors, whispered among the most ancient corners of the galaxy, but never before had they revealed themselves. And now, the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species had just made their presence known. "Captain," Kara whispered, a sense of dread in her voice. What does this mean?" Stone didn't answer immediately. His mind raced as the implications of the transmission sank in. The Tyrex were only a piece of the puzzle, a smaller threat compared to what was lurking in the depths of space. The Elders were coming, and they were not like the Tyrex. The galaxy's true masters had just revealed themselves. "We've only just begun," Stone said quietly. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the fleet, now slowly regrouping after their hard-won victory. Humanity's fight is far from over. Just then, a new signal appeared on the sensors. Not from the Elders, but from Earth. President Carter's face appeared on the screen, her expression grim. "Captain, we've received disturbing reports from across the galaxy. The Tyrex weren't acting alone. There's a far larger force at work. The Elders are only the beginning. Prepare yourself, Captain. The war, it's far from finished." Stone's heart pounded in his chest. This was no longer just about defending Earth. It was about surviving against an ancient power, one that had kept the galaxy in check for millennia. Humanity had just been thrust into a conflict that was far greater than they had ever imagined. But one thing was certain: Earth had awakened, and now no one would stand in their way. As the Avenger and the Silent Fleet began to regroup, a dark shadow loomed overhead. The stars above flickered as a new fleet, far larger and far more advanced, appeared on the horizon. It was the Elders, and they had come to end humanity's rise once and for all.